This is the Mountaineer Moment, your source for all things West Virginia football and basketball. From pregame to postgame coverage and breaking news, we've got you covered. Let's go. Welcome to another episode of Mountaineer Moment. My name is Troy, and I am so excited that you are here for episode number 11 of Mountaineer Moment. And I think that's actually more episodes than days that this show has been alive. So pretty cool. If you're new, which chances are you are, we are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can follow us on all of those platforms, and please subscribe because it helps me and it helps you be in the know when we have new episodes dropping, which again, right now, they're like coming at a daily basis. Mountaineers finished off Robert Morris 45-3 after a strong second half, after a pretty bad first half, especially offensively. And now we're on to week 2 with a matchup with the Ohio Bobcats hitting the road to go to Athens, Ohio for a matchup on Saturday the 6th at 4 o'clock on ESPNU. This is the third out of probably what's going to be 5 episodes dedicated to breaking down this matchup with the Ohio Bobcats. Again, episode 11. Episode 9 was really a preview of Ohio, so you can check that one out, talking about their star quarterback, Parker Navarro. And then episode 10 was 5 things to watch for in the matchup with Ohio. And here we are, episode 11. Going to have a fun one. This was one we did with Robert Morris as well. Looking at some over-unders that I created just to kind of keep an eye on throughout the course of the game related to some stats for West Virginia, and then one even related to the Ohio side of things as well. Again, Mountaineer Moment, your source for West Virginia football and basketball, and happy to be breaking down a few over-unders on this short episode right here, looking at Ohio. So the first over-under we're going to look at is one that we looked at last week as well with Jahiem White and his total number of carries, setting the number at 21.5, and I'm going to get to why I set it at that in just a second. But obviously, Jahiem White is the featured back in the backfield for the Mountaineers. C.J. Johnson on to Ohio State. Had a great game in week 1. Both of these guys had a good game in week 1. Ohio State knocking off number 1 Texas. Donaldson had a touchdown in that one, I think like 80-plus yards. And Jahiem White had 93 yards on 18 carries and 2 touchdowns against Robert Morris. So a really good start to his junior year in the gold and blue. Now, obviously, with what's gone on and what's transpired in the West Virginia backfield through the offseason and in the preseason and even through the start of this season, even more so proves just how important Jahiem White is and his production level is to this Mountaineer team and their success this season. We know the story, obviously, with Jalen Knighton being academically ineligible. He was probably the guy that would have came in with the most experience out of these guys around Jahiem, and now he's not here. We know the story with Ty Edwards and his eligibility, and he was on the field against Robert Morris just a little bit. Didn't get a carry, but hopefully he'll get a few carries against Ohio. Very intrigued to see him, the transfer from Northern Iowa, who rushed for over 1,000 yards a season ago at the FCS level. But here we have Jahiem White, who, again, for the first time in his successful WVU career, he is the guy. And not only that, he's the guy in a Rich Rodriguez-led offense that likes to carry the football. Okay, Jahiem went over, I think the mark last week was 13.5 or 14.5 carries. He went over that in week 1 with 18. The reason I'm setting it at 21.5 for this matchup against Ohio is because his career high came back in his freshman season in 2023 with 21 carries. So if you go with the over here, you're saying Jahiem White is going to get a career high in carries for a single game if he hits the over here. Jahiem White, if you remember that monster game, Mountaineers won by I think 3 touchdowns against Cincinnati at home in 2023 when he eclipsed 200 yards on the ground on those 21 carries. And he caught a pass like, I don't even know, Garrett probably threw it 15, 20 yards, and Jahiem took it to the house for a 75-yard touchdown, his only reception of the day. Had a monster performance back a couple years ago. Again, 21.5. It's a little too early to tell, obviously, what West Virginia is going to do with this running back situation behind Jahiem. But if he's healthy, and again, if he got 18 obviously most of those coming in the first half, but a big win against Robert Morris, I think 21.5, I think 22 is attainable here. So I'm going to take the over here and predict that Jahiem White will get to a career high in carries in this game against Ohio. Vegas is predicting it's going to be close, so we need Jahiem to be Jahiem. We need him to be good. We need the offensive line to block for him and to create some gaps. After the game against Robert Morris, Rich Rod post-game mentioned, he's going to look at some film and see why we weren't able to break Jahiem loose for a couple. So look out for Jahiem White. Maybe he's going to take a deep one to the house against Ohio. That would be a great sign for the Mountaineers and this offensive line. The number 2, over or under, similar thing. We're gonna go to the quarterback position and say over or under 15.5 carries for Nicco Marchiol against Robert Morris. He had 13 carries and a touchdown on that opening drive. He scored that touchdown. Nicco, big physical runner, not the fastest quarterback in the room, but certainly a capable runner, as he proved through his West Virginia career, but also even last week with 13 carries for 60 plus yards and a touchdown. And he believes he's up to the challenge of, obviously, he stayed, and he's here with Rich Rod, and he knows what Rich Rod expects of his quarterbacks. Not that we're going to sit here and pretend that Nicco Marchiol's the next Pat White, or even that he's going to do, he's going to do what the Jacksonville State quarterback did last season with 1,300 yards. But Nicco's a capable runner, and he got 13 carries against Robert Morris, so we're setting the line at 15.5, because I think the Mountaineers are going to come out and look to establish the run. That's actually a key to victory that I have that will be coming up in another episode, so there's a little teaser for you. But 15.5 carries, I think that's attainable. I think he goes over. Again, if he had 13 against Robert Morris, I don't see why he can't get the over against Ohio. Obviously, the thing to watch for is, does Jalen Henderson get in there and take a few carries, if you could say it, away from Nicco Marchiol? That obviously could prevent him from hitting the over here. But if he is the feature quarterback, like we're expecting him to be, if he is the guy and the guys behind him see limited time or no time, I think Nicco's gonna hit the over here, and I think he might even find the end zone yet again. Number 3, over or under. This is a fun one. 1.5 West Virginia wide receiver touchdown catches. Okay, so we know Marchiol's stats last week. Very efficient, 85% completion rate. Had just one touchdown, though, on the deep ball to Cam Vaughn, like 45, 50 yards. West Virginia had 5 touchdowns on the ground, a staple of Rich Rod, and something that West Virginians have come to, I would say, love, and the more appropriate word is come to remember, because it's a little bit of nostalgia remembering Rich Rod's offenses of old, and now to see him back here with the Mountaineers leading the charge and to run 5 touchdowns into the end zone against Robert Morris nonetheless, but still. And so 1.5 West Virginia wide receiver touchdowns. Now that does not include Jahiem White catches a touchdown or a tight end catches a touchdown. But how many wide receiver touchdowns will we see against Ohio? Because of West Virginia's emphasis on establishing the run, and again, I think they're going to, especially in a first road game, and Rich Rod's MO, and, you hope that you can run the ball successfully against any opponent, but against a MAC opponent, you really hope that you can establish the run. So I think I'm going to go under here. Not to say that Nicco's not going to throw for 2 or 3 touchdowns. It might just not be to a wide receiver. But I expect Rich Rod to seek to establish the run, and that's one of the reasons that I'm going over with the West Virginia carries with Nicco Marchiol and Jahiem White. And we are going under with West Virginia touchdown catches for wide receiver under 1.5. All right, that's number 3 for over or under for West Virginia's matchup with the Ohio Bobcats coming up on Saturday. Number 4, over or under 332 total yards for Ohio quarterback Parker Navarro. Again, you'll see why that line is set exactly where it is in just a second. But Navarro has captured my attention. He has captured Zach Alley, defensive coordinator for West Virginia, his attention. He's captured head coach Rich Rodriguez's attention. He's captured Mountaineer fans' attention with his performance a season ago. But then again, you see him, 9 days before you're going to play him and do what he did against Rutgers on Thursday night of opening week in a 34-31 loss, albeit, but he played well and he brings a lot to the table. Definitely known for his legs, can obviously throw the ball too, but what stands out to me the most, and you'll hear me say this in every episode that we have previewing the game that Mountaineers have with the Ohio Bobcats, what impresses me the most about him based on a season ago is his 18 rushing touchdowns. So not only can he scramble and get you some yards, but he can find the end zone. He's a physical runner too, somewhat like Nicco in that sense. But he racked up a lot of yards a season ago, and 18 touchdowns. Now, his numbers that came against Rutgers, he passed for 239 yards and ran it for 93, which, as you might be able to guess by now, that would be good for a grand total of 332 yards. And so the question ultimately becomes, and this over-under, if you're tracking with me, is will the West Virginia defense hold Parker Navarro to less yardage than Rutgers Scarlet Knights were able to do so in their 34-31 victory over Ohio? As a West Virginia fan, as the host of Mountaineer Moment, I got to take the under here. Very hopeful in Zach Alley and his scheme. Again, something else you're going to hear us talk about on this countdown to kickoff with Ohio over the course of these few episodes is this chess match that's going to happen on Saturday between the Ohio quarterback and the West Virginia defensive coordinator, Zach Alley. Definitely a chess match. And I think, even hearing what he said in his Tuesday press conference, Alley spoke about a large desire to see them contain Parker into the pocket. His quote is that, he's a top 5 quarterback in the country when he's outside of the pocket. They looked into some numbers, some stats that saw that. So Zach Alley, his quote, top 5 quarterback in the country when he's outside of the pocket. He is unbelievable when he's on the move. So high praise from Zach Alley, and well-deserved based on, again, a MAC championship winning quarterback who ran it for 18 touchdowns and well over 1,000 yards in 2024. That's the thing to keep an eye on for the Mountaineers. When the Mountaineers on defense, all eyes are on that quarterback. What he's going to do through the air, what he's going to do with his legs, how often is that going to hurt you? Is it going to hurt you so much that Ohio wins this game? We'll find out. He's susceptible to throw some interceptions. He threw 11 interceptions a season ago with just 13 touchdowns through the air. Again, the 18 on the ground, but 13 through the air. It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, see how this chess match plays out between Navarro and Zach Alley. And again, I think with Ohio playing so well in week 1, and now they're going back home, should be a great atmosphere. Lots of Mountaineer fans will be making the 2-3 hour trip from Morgantown or elsewhere in the state. Should be a fun atmosphere, but Ohio's going to be hungry to face, again, another power conference opponent and hoping to win. Also, if you look ahead at Ohio's schedule, they play Ohio State the following week. So the same weekend of the backyard brawl, Ohio's going to be meeting Ohio State in week 3. So they're doing it right in the non-conference. Rutgers, West Virginia, Ohio State for the MAC defending champion Ohio Bobcats. Anyway, that is the over-under edition of Mountaineer Moment, gearing up for their week 2 matchup with the Ohio Bobcats again, keep an eye on future episodes coming, even just this week, previewing the action with Ohio. And then if you didn't catch the earlier episodes, episode 9 and 10, dedicated to this matchup with Ohio, there's more stuff there for you. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are, please subscribe. Help us help you. And we'll see you next time. Let's go Mountaineers.